Hello everyone, we are here with Yasemin Baran, Illustrator Yasemin Baran. She will be talking about the steps to be taken in character design for video games and how we can implement these steps in practice. Now I would like to invite Miss Yasemin Baran. Hello. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for inviting me here. You can start. Are you going to share a screen? Yes. I have a presentation. Closing my cam off, so I'll leave the floor for you. All right, thank you. Hello, everyone. For video games, character design is important. This is what I'm going to be talking about. Everything that I will tell you about will be applicable for every kind of games. The things that you learn from this presentation will be applicable, will be beneficial for other types of instances, and we'll see different types of examples for my slides. So now, at the first place, we need to talk about the shapes right off the bat, because in designs, what comes first are the shapes. And these three shapes are observed in nature without consciously or unconsciously, and there are some meanings given by our mind to these shapes. And these character designs, these shapes are important because these shapes are defining the characteristics of the characters, features of them, and the concepts representing them. Or these shapes can be reflected for their movements. If our character has no identity or story, let's say that it's a platform game just for fun purpose, then the shapes that we will use on character should be supportive to the mechanics, in-game mechanics or movements of the character that we have. So I have this table in which you can see these three shapes. But now we will take a look at the meanings represented in our minds by these shapes. There is no strict rule that the representation is applied all the time, but we can say that 90%, whenever we see these shapes, there are some ideas that we capture. And more or less, majority of people have the same idea, and we try to make these meanings as tools. The stripes or rounded shapes look like they're lovely, sweet, soft, not harmful, and friendly. So in that kind of characters, we normally use these shapes, the rounded shapes. This rounded shape is not for mechanics, but also used to reflect the inner world of characters. So our character might be friendly, but for the inner world of our character, round shape would be best for us. The round shapes are used spiritually as well. We can think of yin-yang symbol. So spiritually, it has a meaning. Emotionally, it has a meaning. Round shapes are used for emotions as well, or it can be used for the internal balance, like used in yin-yang. All of the things are similar to each other, and round shapes means to be part of a cycle too. The square shape, unlike rounded shape, is more solid one. As you can see, when you look at it, it gives us a different impression. Other types of rectangle or square shapes generally consist of horizontal and vertical stripes, lines. And these horizontal and vertical lines are solid and robust shapes. It's not dynamic, but more like static. So as this square is composed of these two lines, and at the same time, since it has its solid shape, we can attribute the fixed, concrete, robust, and durable or reliable adjectives to it. Or in physical word, we can also attribute other adjectives like willful, balanced, egalitarian. So generally, we can think of all kinds of connotations coming from being reliable. You can think of as a shield, the warrior shield. So this is how it is creating an impression for us. When being solid goes a little bit extremist, a little bit too extreme, it can a little bit more rigid adjective, or sometimes it can also mean heavy or slow or severely solid. So as I said, rounded is funny and square is solid. So what about the movement? What about the dynamics, mobilization? This is where the triangle comes. Triangle, it has diagonal lines compared to squares. And these lines are used to create being a dynamic, to create dynamics. So triangle, like square, might be dynamic, movable, might also be very intelligent, brilliant, mysterious. And also, we can also attribute some adjectives like bad, dangerous, harmful. The reason for this is because triangle has its sharp edges, and as humans, we are trying to find out what we see from items in the nature, in our environment. So being dynamic, sharp is something we see in the triangle as well. When this sharpness seems a little bit longer or taller, we think this of as, you know, dangerous, mysterious, a little bit more dangerous for us. Of course, square has its own edges as well, but it is more like, for example, you hit your toes in a table, to a table. It doesn't get your toes bleed, but it gives you pain. But the edges of the triangles is too sharp to make your parts bleed. You can keep this example in your mind. So let's talk about the proportions of these shapes, because we can use these shapes jointly, all together. And second of all, we can adjust their proportions. For example, we can create a character with two rounded shape and one rectangle shape. There are two examples that I would like to provide. One of them is, as you can see on the left-hand side, upper left-hand side, there's a character. If you have seen Harry Potter movie, it looks like the troll, like in the first movie. For example, the body of this character is a basic square. So legs are a little bit longer rectangle, but it gets expanded in the feet. So this character looks heavy and slow. This is the impression that we get, right? A little bit bulky. So another thing is the proportions of the shapes compared to the other ones, the other characters. However, the character has its own proportions as well. This is how we can make a judgment out of the proportions. Another thing is that if we change the proportions of the shape, the character starts to move heavily. For example, the expanded part of that leg means that the character needs to put a lot of effort to move. Another thing is about intelligence. When we look at the painting, of course, we cannot calculate or measure the intelligence of anything, of any creature. However, our mind is trying to dilute everything to get a meaning. As you can see, the proportion of the head is less compared to the other parts of the body, right? Very small head. So a small head, so the brain is located in the head, right? So maybe we can get the impression that the character might not be that intelligent. So we can say that this character has low IQ. Maybe this is why it resembles to the troll in the first Harry Potter movie. That troll wasn't able to talk. If we are interested in FRP, it looks like the intelligence status is too low, right? So it's because the development of the proportions. If you look at the right-hand side, another example, for example, this character looks a little bit stronger, right? A little bit competent in terms of hand and gesture coordination, eye and gesture coordination. But this character has a huge body, upper body, but short legs. This shows that this character might not be able to run fast, or although it runs, it gets exhausted fast. It wouldn't be possible to move fast with those legs, right? So if we look at the head, the proportion of the head, it has a little bit bigger head. Maybe it has capacity to think, but it has no potential to be a patron, right? Maybe it's like a sidekick of the patron, but couldn't be a patron, couldn't be a king, right? It's all about proportions. This example showed us how important the proportions are. Now let's take a look at how impactful these shapes in character design. In this example, we have SpongeBob shapes. And on the right of each character, you see the proportions, these sketches, right? We can use these three shapes in every character design. But if we use these three shapes in the same proportion, we might be a little bit disoriented sometimes. Because of this, while designing the characters, you need to create a balance between each of your shape, big, middle, and small relationships. And in these characters, as you can see, the shapes start from bigger and goes to the smaller, right? Also, you can think of the shapes, like you can create a hierarchy based on the sizes of each shape. In SpongeBob, you can see as the SpongeBob is square shaped, square is bigger. Is it because this is why the SpongeBob is called SquarePants? When we take a look at the characteristic, the quality of the SpongeBob, although SpongeBob is a little bit silly, the SpongeBob works in a hamburger restaurant, right? And these hamburgers have its own formula, very mysterious formula, right? So the plankton, the antagonist, is trying to get the recipe all the time. And there are some instances that the SpongeBob was put in the corner. And SpongeBob says no in each and every single of instances. He says, no, I cannot share it because I made a promise and I cannot share the recipe of the hamburger. So SpongeBob is a man of a word, is it? And sometimes it gets stressed, sometimes it gets scared. So what I mean from this examples is that SpongeBob is a man of a word, of his word. Sometimes is a little bit stubborn, but we can say that SpongeBob is also a bigot, a hard-headed, right? From the perspective of the patron there, of the restaurant, we can think SpongeBob as a reliable person, right? Because SpongeBob doesn't tell lie, very reliable. So it's a main character of a cartoon. Of course, the SpongeBob should have the friendly characteristics, right? So the secondary, this is why the secondary shape of the SpongeBob is round. The eyes, nose, the porous shape, the holes on the body, all of them are rounded. This is why SpongeBob becomes a very friendly and lovely, not stubborn or solid or cold, but rather becomes a little bit friendly and lovely. And using these round shapes creates a balance between round and square shapes. And all of these shapes, the triangle is also used to create some movement, mobilization, and dynamic. So let's go on with Patrick. Patrick is a star shape, right? And Patrick is a starfish. If the triangle, as I said, it has sharp edges, and Patrick is one of the least dangerous characters in the cartoon, as you know. But it's not a character that aims to give harm. So how we can transform this starfish into a lovely character? As you can see, the edges of the triangles of the starfish is rounded. You can create a harmony between the shapes. If you change the edges, and if you can replace the edge with a rounded shape, this mentality makes the character lively and dynamic one. And if we see these shapes on these characters more, we actually make the meanings of these shapes stronger. And to integrate a little bit loveliness, they put a tummy. So the square and the triangle is closer, but there's a difference between those shapes. By the way, these two characters have their own characteristics and have their own stories. There are some shapes reflecting those two components. But in game dynamics, sometimes everything changes. For example, Mario. Mario did not have a story when first released. So while making the original character design of Mario, or we can name other characters based on the game mechanisms and based on what the character needs to do, or based on the experience that you would like to do, you would like to reflect to the player, you can create a game at the character design. Mario is rather friendly and lovely, so that's why lots of rounded shapes are used. And as you know, Nintendo is interested in creating friendly shapes. And of course, the lovely ones are for younger ages, but not for matured all the time. And all of these round shapes creates the perception of being lovely, and these square and triangle shapes creates the other parts. The main goal of the Mario, of course, is to run everywhere, to go from point A to point B. And arms are used too. In classic Mario games, Mario just runs. So the fact that the arms and the legs are square shows that the Mario does whatever he needs to do and does very reliably. So the other triangle shapes create richness for the character design of Mario. So let's go on with Sonic. Sonic, as far as I know, have no story in character design, but Sonic originally was created to compete with Mario. Nintendo created Mario and it got viral, and then Sega decided to create another character and comes up with the Sonic. Sonic has the role of running so fast, collecting all these coins, and what the Sonic does is just running and jumping. So the main function is fast running, and at the same time, the character wants to compete with Mario, so it's important to be lovely as well for the consumers, right? But this part is a little bit based on the PR and the promotion, because if you are doing this character design, you cannot think of this issue independent from the game design. And as it has no goal, then all of the things will be disoriented. So let's go back to Sonic. Sonic is a hedgehog. A hedgehog. So blue one, right? It's supposed to be a hedgehog. Interestingly, the predominant shape is triangle. And there are thorns on the back of the character as it's a hedgehog. But these triangles are not like fully sharp ones. It has a little bit inclined, so it has a rounded shape generally. So interestingly, the side that the Sonic turns their face on is different. Sonic has its face rounded, which means in terms of its characteristics, it's lovely. There is no component in his face that will threaten us. And so when the Sonic runs, the movements creates an animation that seems lovely. So nothing seems dangerous for us. The shape of the nose, eyes, face. So as you can see, there are only 2 triangles that Sonic has, which are located in feet, because Sonic has to run, as the triangles have the dynamics, the movement. We can say the triangles are facing towards to the front. This shows that the Sonic aims at running towards its front. Another example from movie, Carl consists of many squares all at once because Carl is a very stubborn old man.
It only has a square nose, and the face usually shows the personality. Carl is usually with good intentions, and at the start of the Up movie, in his youth, his lines are more curved, a lot more curved, and during the period of the time that the movie is set in, he is squared. But when we take a look at Russell, he is shaped like an egg. Face is curved, circular. All his awards are curved. So we are seeing that circular theme and it's repeating. So it makes Russell a cute, soft character, but it's not just the extremely cute character, it's also Russell is also a Scot, so it's energical, smart, and there are some triangles on top of him: the hair, the flag, and the trumpet. If we take a look at the bird, it doesn't have personality. If you didn't watch it, it's going to be a spoiler, but I think more than 10 years have passed, so I think it's fine. The bird is trying to take care of its babies and lives in the forest. But the thing about the bird is, yes, it runs fast, but other than that, our characters sees the bird and the story develops. And the villain also sees the bird and follows the bird. So the bird is the catalyst of the story. That is the reason the characters are coming together. Also, it's running very fast, and the purpose of it is to move the story. It is shaped like an arrow. We can see the body is a triangle, legs and feet are triangles. The only circular shape is the eyes. And the dog character, the dog is, you can see the nose is very big and it's a dog and he can smell very well. So they are giving attention to that. And also, if your characters have specific functions or something that they are good at, you can focus on that. You can bring that to the forefront. He is the dog of the villain, but he's a good character. That's why, even though it's a giant nose, it's a circular nose, and it is mostly made up of circular, curved. As we can know, Poe from Kung Fu Panda is made up of a lot of circles, and but Master Ugle at the bottom is a great example for the usages of the circles in a different way. He is a Kung Fu master, and nobody knows how old he is, and he reaches Nirvana from the first movie and leaves. The dominant shape is the circle, but not just because he's a sweet old man, because also because he has inner balance. The master Sifu, for example, always says inner peace, inner peace. That character has inner peace, and like a yin yang symbol, it is circular. For the monkey, for example, it is more balanced with rectangles and circles. While doing character design, these examples are from animation, but it is also the case for games, usually in big companies, not one person will create the character design, but multiple people will be designing the character. And because of that, the reason for that is having a lot of different options and ideas. Even if you are doing it alone at the start of your project, you don't have to decide on a style, because the most important point is the shapes and ratios. Where are those shapes? What are the ratios and function of the character and personality of the character are the important. You can use any style you want. As long as the shapes are the same, the meanings will not be changed. Right here you can see from Frozen. At first it was about a witch of snow, but these left ones are not a finished design. This is to understand the personality of the character. These are for research purposes. And these are very important in design because you have to discover your character so that you can properly and effectively design it. Now we have Mickey Mouse and Winnie the Pooh. These are designed for very young children. Now, when we think about younger viewers or players, very young children can't actually distinguish between very complicated or intricate details. So they prefer bigger blocks and it's easier for them to understand. So if there are a lot of details, a lot of shapes, it is harder for them to understand because of their mental development and their experience, of course, life experience. That's why for very young children, these characters created for young children, they would have a lot of circles and the number of shapes would be lower as well, so that it is easier to understand. For example, they have animated Angry Birds, and this is a great adaptation example. This was a circle. It's just a circle. So how can you create a main character from that? You may have to add shapes because the original design, it doesn't have a body, it's only a head. So for a main character of a movie, it has to have the body so that it is going to be able to act with his body. So by turning it into a rectangle and adding arms and legs, we are turning it into an expressive character. We have more examples here, but now for designing the characters, we talked about the shapes and how can we use these shapes. And right here, 1 second. Right here, we have different stages for one character and how we can have character design is, this is the way it is done. We want to have a lot of iterations. We want to have different things that we try because our first idea might not be the best one. Maybe you have a great idea, but is it suitable to the story and the project? Is it functionally proper? So you're going to have a lot of iterations and you will have to have a lot of drafts and try to find which ones will be suiting best. We play with the shapes and ratios while we are also creating these drafts. And left one is a bit more circular and it's including the exterior silhouette of the character. There's a circle going around the character. You have to take a look at it as a whole. For example, here this triangle, you can't say that the character is triangle. And we have a square character and a triangular character. And the one that has been picked is this one. Then color exploration might be required, and I would suggest you to do it because the first colors that you imagine might not be the best one. For example, let's say a red shirt, we can say that, but red is not just one color. What is the tone of it? How lively is it? Dark or light is it? Colors are, of course, a whole new world, and I would suggest you to research color theory, and it is very important. And we psychologically interact with colors as well, so it is important for us to understand the role of color. And right here we have an example called turnaround, which is giving different sides of the character, because while we are designing a character, the character designer's job is not modeling it, and for 3D modeler's job is not doing the design of the character. So maybe in a smaller studio it might be the case that these jobs are done by one person, but in ideal that is not the case. For the character designer, the designer has to create the character in 360 degrees, what it looks like from the front, from the back, and if they have a cloak, what is it going to look like without the cloak, and the side perspectives. Especially if we are going to turn this into a 3D model, the modeler has to know about these things. And the mission of the modeler is enriching the design of the character is not, or the modelers is not, are not supposed to interpret what it should be. We are going to have to give them enough information, all the items in front of the characters, all the texture or different accessories are the responsibility of the character designer. So we set shapes and ratios. At the first point, we are going to have to create a lot of silhouettes, because while we are doing that, we can have a general view of the character. If they were to take a look at it from a far away, what is going to be the first impression? That's why we start with the silhouettes, because they are without details, and this is the clearest area that you can see the shapes. And also what I can say about silhouettes and design is the silhouette itself will be the positive area, and the empty space around it would be are called negative areas. And these negative areas are also important for your character's design. For example, right here, there's a triangle between two blades. That would be adding a triangle. That's why negative space is important as well. And if you take a look at a lot of silhouettes, you would see that there's a very low number of designs that have closed poses. We want to show as much negative area as possible because we want to see the silhouette of the character. You can't have the character closed down in front of it with closed arm. So it wouldn't be a clear silhouette in that sense. That's why for my students, I would ask them to prefer a pose right across from the character, or maybe 3/4 of the characters from the side. And also you don't have to change the poses of the character, because from this silhouette and the difference, you can see a bit more shapes added to this, and it feels different. These squares, these triangles, other triangles, bigger or smaller triangles, well, the feeling changes. That's what we want to try during the silhouette stage. We have to try and see how it looks and feels. we try to achieve what we want during silhouette stage, then we are going to pick one and we are going to add the interior shapes because we are not sure what is going to be in this darkness. And you don't have to know that. You have to first decide on these shapes and then maybe discover what the shape is going to be. And for the interior shapes, we are adding more shapes on top of the character. Maybe this is going to be the second level of importance in terms of shape. And we are going to add it now. Yes. Let me check the time. And if you like to design characters, do not limit yourself. All the shapes, all the styles you can have, you can design characters. Is what's important is not how cool or how beautiful your character is. It's about the representation of the personality of the character. That's what's important. You have to use your shapes properly and you have to learn to use the shapes. And while designing characters, if the character has a unique weapon or an item or spells maybe, then design it with the character. Let's say, for example, in an open world game that you're designing and everybody has the same armor from the same hammersmith or forger or blacksmith. And these kinds of armors are belonging to the world, so they are not designed with the character. So object designers will design that armor. But if your character has a specific hammer, for example, left to him from his father, and he's going to use that hammer the entirety of the game, then that hammer is an extension of your character, like his arms. So you have to design it with the character. At the same time, if the character has specific powers, spells, different magical items, those are, if they are unique to that character, they also have to be designed with the character. Of course, approaches can be changed and there is no single proper way or truth in design. If you want to express what you want to express, if you're able to get that across, you're in the right path. Now, I would like to stop in this place. And if you are creating a world, if you are creating races, do not forget this. The being that is called human cannot create out of thin air. So the way our minds works is that we have to have some information and we can use some source information and we can combine them, we can analyze them, we can try to maybe create a new thing from a source material. So we have to have a source material to be able to create new things. We can't create from nothing. So that's why even if you are creating aliens or fantastical races in our world, within the logical system, we have to have a logical system, a framework for our characters. For example, if a blue race is living in a desert area, that will be found by predators. It will be difficult for them to hide. But if a species is colored similar to the sand, if it's a beige or yellow, then it would be better for their survival. So you might want to think about these things. And also different, if the patterns are changing between characters, why are they changing? If one has a horn, if the other doesn't, one is a shorter horn, one is a longer horn. It doesn't have to be extremely realistic, but we have to have a believable background and logic to it so that your designs are much realistic and deeper. For example, these ones have shorter horns because they lived in caves, so they have evolved to have shorter horns. That's why their cousins living in open wide area have longer horns. So that's an example for a reason. For example, I think we are out of time right now. I have a bit more presentation, but I don't know what is the situation about the time. I mean, yes, we are out of time, but if you have a bit more, we don't have another session after you, so you can finish it. Of course, we are going to upload this to YouTube as well. Okay, character design. By the way, is there any questions from the room? Yes, if there are questions, I would like to answer also. If we can finish in a couple of minutes, it would be great. Finally, what I would like to say is to discover your characters better, you can try different poses or different situations. This will allow you to discover your character. What would they do and how would they move? Also, facial expressions are extremely important. Body language is very important, and character designers are the person responsible for this, not the animators. Of course, in a smaller group, animators and character designers are going to be possibly working together, but this is mostly the job of the character designer. We have a character lineup here, and we put all the finalized characters together to see if their heights and sizes are properly matching and if they look from being from the same world. And especially in 2D animation, the character turnaround is very important because a lot of more than one people will be moving the character. So we have to know the different perspectives and where all the items are on top of it, all the clothes are falling from all the perspectives. We have to have a reference for different points so that animation can be done properly. Yes. These are some examples of finalized characters. And this is my presentation. Is there any questions? Thank you very much. The people in here are saying that it was so clear and well explained. We don't even have to ask any questions. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation, Yasemin. And we have online viewers as well. I would like to thank everybody for their participation. And this event is concluding right now. This is it. And thank you very much, Mr. Alpay, to you as well. And for the next in the way is going to be included in the Gaming Istanbul event. So I hope to see you all in Gaming Istanbul and in the way in the Gaming Istanbul. Thank you everybody who has supported us and all of our sponsors, our speakers, presenters, and viewers. See you later. Thank you.